There are 15,304 of you guys subscribed to this channel now. Well, that was a smooth transition. Hey guys, my name is Evelyn. If you're new here, I noticed a lot of you guys found this channel recently. Welcome to this little corner of the internet. Thank you so much for being here. I thought today we'd sit down and get to know each other a little bit. Let's chat about my background, relationship, which you guys seem to be very curious about, how I've been doing since quitting my job, life in China. I'll grab a snack, grab a drink. When I tried to film this the first time, I made myself a matcha latte, but that went terribly. Turns out Q&As are a lot harder to film than I thought. Where are you from? I'm from China, from a little city in the northeast called Shenyang. Well, not so little because there are 8 million people living there, and not ABC. I've been taking English classes since I was 7, but we all know how that goes. So actually since 2011, when I moved to the suburbs of Chicago to become an exchange student, not AMGASH, where anything is possible, it's set. I live in Guangzhou, also China for the moment, but I'm actually in Beijing now, where I also lived. I've also lived in Chicago, where I had my first big girl job as a Thai consultant. Also Houston, where I confined myself in the dorms of Rice University because I couldn't cope with the fact that everybody there was smarter than me. And so I fled to Bloomington, Indiana to find my boyfriend at the time. I graduated from Indiana University, Bloomington, but the relationship never worked out. I studied psychology because just before going to college, I read a book, First Person Plural, My Life as a Multiple. It's about dissociative identity disorder, and I remember waking up crying from night terror because I've always been scared of supernatural things and the unknown, and I think learning more about my own mind was a huge comfort. Also economics, because it was the most likely to land me a job. I couldn't have wished for better courses to study because I am obsessed with behavioral economics. I still listen to every single episode of Freakonomics Radio. I remember when I was working at a psychology lab in college, Rich Schifrin walked in, and I had just learned about his multi-store model of memory in class. So when my professor was like, "This is Rich Schifrin," I gasped and was like, "He's still alive?" Not awkward. Are you a cynic? I expect very little of people and circumstances, and certainly corporate, but I still believe existence is beautiful, life is meaningful, and I want to make positive changes in this world because it feels better that way. So you tell me. Shocking truth, when I started this channel, it was actually called Evelyn Eats. About 6 months in, I realized I enjoy watching and making lifestyle vlogs a lot more. At the time, I was going through a phase where I was obsessed with bubble tea and books, so I scrambled together something that's vaguely related to both, and that's how we ended up with a channel name that no one understands. What's the message you want to get out with YouTube? That everybody has their own path and we go through them at different paces. There's just so much more to life than the limited set of possibilities society limits our imagination to. In a long-term committed relationship, are you and Dave still together? Yes. I was in Beijing alone from May to June because Dave had to be somewhere else, and I also had to move to Guangzhou alone, which was really tough, but during that time I learned a lot about myself. Where did you and Dave meet? Here at his bar, but it won't be his anymore after today because they couldn't make enough money to survive. Dave is Irish, but he is also kind and brilliant and genuine and has a lot of love to give. Believe it or not, we appreciate those qualities in China too. The only real cultural difference, I guess, was when he explained to my mom in Chinese why we were never getting married. But that doesn't really bother me. How's your relationship with your mom? Complicated, but I am actually going home to Shenyang this weekend, so I will report back on that in a future vlog. How do your parents feel about you leaving corporate and doing YouTube full-time? I am pleasantly surprised that they have never said, no, you can't do this, which is a lot coming from them. I know they are more scared than I am because it's taken me a long time to convince myself that I will find a way to support myself after leaving corporate. I don't think they've had time to come to that conclusion just yet, but I'm still very proud of them. What made you decide to move to China? I didn't actually decide to move to China. I came back for vacation from Chicago, and during that time, COVID broke out, all visa applications were halted, and I just never got a visa to go back. Where do you like it better, China or the US? China is where I feel most at home because this is the only place in this world where being here for me is a right, not a privilege. I feel like my coming of age came in the US, but for the entire 8.5 years I was there, I never felt I was entitled to be there, which is why one of my favorite books is Vagabonds by Hao Jingfeng. It's about a group of teenagers from Mars who went to study on Earth, returned to Mars only to realize there's no longer a world they truly belong. Do you envision yourself staying in China for the long term? I am beginning to feel that my time to China is coming to an end. I have hinted that I am considering moving to Europe, and that's still the plan. Maybe Berlin for a landing spot. I really don't have any concrete plans yet, but whenever I figure it out, I will keep you guys posted. Welcome back. Yes, we may be on a boat. Did I rent out this boat solely for the purposes of this video? Maybe. Sometimes it gets really awkward and I try and film in front of people, so this is a nice bit of peace and quiet. We are in Beihai Park in Beijing. How's life since you've quit? Pretty good. I think the biggest difference in my life since I quit my job is that now I wake up every day feeling hopeful and excited to take on the day. I think the last time I felt like that was when I was recruiting for jobs in university, ironically. What pushed you to jump on the resigning boat and never look back? I think it was realizing how unhappy I was when I worked, and that unhappiness didn't go away whether I worked for a Chinese company or an American company, whether I worked in consulting or tech. And I thought, this can't be it. Whether you quit corporate or not, or how you eventually get there, is a very personal choice. And quitting corporate is a part of the journey, not the destination. I ask myself every day, even today, what if this doesn't work out? And granted, one day I may also go back. At the end of the day, what matters the most is your own health and your own happiness. I think you should be able to stand up for yourself and tell anyone who tells you otherwise. You need to put those things first. When we hit a low in our career, how to know whether to let it go or keep pushing. People have different approaches to this question. For me personally, I think it depends on your long-term goal, but the timing of it depends on your short-term goal. For example, I was having a really tough time at work last summer. You guys might have noticed I didn't post a lot of videos back then. I had known already at that time this job wasn't going to be forever, but I still pushed through because I needed to pass probation. I needed to save more money, and once I saved enough, I decided to let it go. A lot of you guys have asked about my personal finance, how much I spend, how much I saved, budget update. I am in the process of making a what I spend in a day video to dive into all of that. It'll come out next week, hopefully. My rule of thumb for money is every single paycheck I had received, I never thought of it as entirely spendable. I've always lived very frugally for my income, which is a blessing and a curse. But because of that, I have been able to save quite aggressively over the past 2 or 3 years. But then again, that's also because I have very little financial obligations. Everybody's situation is different, so please be kind to yourself and please don't hate me. How do you keep yourself motivated after quitting a job? I think that's a really great question. Not a lot of people would think of that until they've quit, and you might find yourself unprepared. For me, I feel very motivated because I quit my job to do something that I really want to do. This is actually the first job I quit because I wanted to do something else more. Every other job I've left was because I wanted to run away from something, whether it's not getting paid enough or being overworked. It might seem like a trivial detail, but it made the world of difference to me. What's something you struggle with right now? I think definitely time management, and I feel really embarrassed to say this as someone who used to manage projects for a living, but I am terrible at being consistent with uploading for two reasons. One, I really struggle with my attentional span. It's difficult for me to sit down and work on something for 5 minutes, let alone 20-30 hours to finish editing a video. I actually think my first job as a tech consultant really forced me to be able to sit down for longer. Without that experience, I don't think I would have been able to do content full-time right now. I've been using different tools like putting my phone on focus mode, using a focus timer to combat that. The other reason is I don't think I'm really great at prioritizing. I get stressed out about deadlines and I would end up doing smaller but unimportant things to cope with my anxiety instead of actually investing time on challenging tasks, which is something I'm working on right now. How do you deal with judgment from others? I think actually the most judgment I've dealt with was from my family. But ever since the Day Without a Job vlog got picked up by the algorithm, I have been getting some comments that are quite judgmental. I would be lying if I said I'm completely unbothered, but I love what I do enough that it doesn't deter me from continuing to do what I love to do. How am I managing side hustles along with YouTube? Quite a few of you guys have asked about Small Batch Cookie Co. For those of you who are new here, it's a side hustle I started in Beijing. It's literally a one-person bakery where I bake thousands of cookies and then sell them at markets and coffee shops. Short answer to this question is I'm not managing. I have been taking a break from Small Batch Cookie Co. for a few months because right around the time I quit my job, I realized I've been really burnt out from my own side hustle. When you're just one person managing a business that's quite labor intensive, it stops being fun. So I decided to prioritize my happiness and focus on YouTube for the moment. I really appreciate all of your support and I don't want Small Batch Cookie Co. to stop existing. I've been listening to the How I Built This podcast a lot lately and I've been taking a lot of inspiration from food brand like Ben & Jerry's, Seattle Coffee Company, Dutch Bros, how they're able to still build a successful brand without being personally involved in the production process. So maybe that's the next project I'll take on, but in the short term, I want to try and keep Small Batch Cookie Co. alive for you guys by maybe sharing recipes online, making shorts about cookies. I don't really have a concrete idea yet, but I will keep you guys posted. What interests you about making YouTube videos and how do you know it's your passion? I love YouTube because when I'm having a bad day, I go on YouTube to watch vlogs and it will make my day a lot better. For me, it's a healthy parasocial relationship that has greatly improved my life. And I hope the vlogs I put out could be a similar comfort for you guys. Also, YouTube is the only thing I've done that I've never been tired of, and that's gotta mean something. Tips for starting YouTube. I think a good place to start would be by watching your favorite YouTubers and learning their storytelling, filming, and editing style. I don't know if you guys noticed, but this channel is heavily influenced by Best Dressed. When I watch Best Dressed, I don't just watch the video. I would take notes on her camera angle, pacing of the story, the music she used, what kind of emotion she's trying to convey with a certain scene, how she uses outcuts and J-cuts. I also really like watching Moya Molony. Her aesthetics are on point. I still need to practice what I preach, but I think with YouTube it's so much more important to be consistent and put out as many videos as possible than it is to invest 50 hours editing one video to make it perfect. You really get better at making videos through iteration and learning from every single video you made yourself. How to grow YouTube? I was chatting with a friend in market research a while back about why my channel's not growing, and the first question she asked me was, who's your target audience? I think for sustainable growth, what matters the most is knowing your audience, knowing what they would love to see. Also, I feel like in this day and age, titles and thumbnails are super important. I've done this exercise for my own YouTube feed where for every single thumbnail on the feed, I ask myself, would I click this, and take notes on why or why not. I found that to be massively helpful. What are your favorite YouTubers? Who do you get inspiration from? Besides Best Dressed and Moya, I watch Julia Fay, who is a data scientist based in New York City. Kate Choi, I've been following Kate Choi for a really long time. She does a really great job balancing her full-time job as a consultant and content creation, which you might find inspiring if that's a path you want to pursue. Chloe Shi, who is a product manager at Discord. I still find her career advice super helpful even though I've left corporate. A few of you guys have mentioned you love Leah's Field Notes. I love her channel as well. Okay, I'm running late for my flight back to Guangzhou and I'm like covered with mosquito bites. So let's do a round of rapid fire questions. Favorite books? The Idiot by Elif Batuman. For the moment, I love a gentle coming-of-age novel. Bookstores in China. This is actually one of my favorite bookstores in Beijing. It's called Post Post. They carry mostly self-published indie art books and more academic research on aesthetics. They're also a coffee shop. If you're in Beijing, I would recommend checking this out. There's another one in Beijing that carries more English literature books. It's called Page One. I personally don't go there because all of their books are wrapped in plastic. It doesn't deliver the experience of flipping through books in a bookstore that I live for. How do you find books in China? I watch BookTube, Jack Edwards. I also am on Goodreads all the time and I follow a bunch of publishers and literary awards on Instagram. When I find a book that I want to buy, I usually just search the title on Taobao. Unless it's super new, it's usually available. Favorite restaurant in Beijing? Zara. I was gonna take you guys there today, but it seems like I'm really running out of time. But it's a really beautiful cafe with a cute courtyard. Secondhand store in Beijing, Roundabout. I've wanted to go there for a really long time but have never made it. So if you guys have been, please let me know in the comments how it is. Can a vegan survive for a couple of weeks in China as a tourist? Short answer is yes. I would recommend following my friend Vegan in China on Instagram for more resources. Will you someday grow herbs like mint, parsley, Chinese chives? These are great plants for beginners. Thank you for your assumption about my plant rearing skills. Okay, they are pretty bad, but I have recently acquired a bunch of plants. I do fully intend to keep them alive and I will keep you posted on their survival or thrival. Oh, that sounds like an ugly word. Well, thank you for making it all the way to the end. I hope now you've gotten to know me a little bit more. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up to help the algorithm deem me worthy. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you next time. Bye. There's so many mosquitoes here.